We are officially, I think we're live almost every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. I love this time. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We are going to chat. Okay. If you haven't figured it out already, I'm one of those super honest educators where I totally play favorites. I know we're not supposed to, and most people say they don't, but I do. There are certain educators and certain administrators, certain leaders, certain schools, certain districts that I love, and I do. I mean, and I totally play favorites. So one of my favorite places on the planet for kids and teachers and school leaders is in Quitman, Texas, and I've been there a number of times, and I just love everything about that place and what they do for kids and how the community works together. And I love that we get to spotlight these heroic people around the nation just doing what's right for kids. And there's so many examples of that in Quitman ISD, in those schools with the people there that have accepted the honor and responsibility for serving those kids in that town, and these amazing high performing kids of exceptional character that go to those schools. And so I'm so glad we get to talk about them a little bit. So tonight we have my friend Rhonda Turner is the superintendent out at Quitman ISD, and she's been there, I want to say 7, maybe 8 years. I can't keep track. I'm getting old. I'm losing a lot of information in this noggin, and we're going to talk about all that's going on with Quitman as we get back for a new exciting school year with new opportunities for sure, and some of the things that got Quitman ISD some national attention last year. So let's get into it. Here we go. Rhonda Turner, Superintendent, Quitman ISD. How are you?
Hey, Hal, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Super excited. We tried to do this a while back and I had all kinds of technical issues. So I'm glad we're able to catch up today.
I think we both had technical issues. Hey, so let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about last year. Everything's just kind of humming along. Another school year. We're just doing the thing. Kids are loving it. Teachers loving it. We have our Christmas break. We all come back. And then I remember some conversation on the news about something was happening in China, and I thought, well, that doesn't really affect us. And then things are getting serious in France and Italy, and I said, is this a real thing? And then all of a sudden, things changed. And at what point in the school year, I guess it was sometime around mid-March, did you guys start freaking out like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
Yeah, we were had planned our spring break a week later than the other districts around us, and it was an accident. But and so I was kind of feeling a little bad because we were going to be running a little bit later. And so it was that week right before we were getting out for spring break and the other districts around us were on spring break that all that news started hitting. And I remember talking to a couple of my superintendent friends who were away on trips for spring break and saying, I'm not sure when you get back if you're going to be able to go to school. And they're like, what? And so, because they were vacationing, and it was not on anyone's radar. Well, no one I know, it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't something we were expecting or looking for. So it was a little bit of a challenge. So we were trying to make some plans prior to spring break, hoping that we would be back afterwards. But as we all know now, we did not get to go back. So we went home for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And so when that all went down and you guys, I guess like a lot of folks were trying to figure out how to serve your kids with buses and delivering packets and meals and also online. And what was that like? Because in a smaller community, it's very different than a lot of other towns where, I'm talking about just simple computer access and Wi-Fi service and all that.
Sure. Yeah, I think our challenges were were not unique. I think we had the same issues that most rural areas have. lots of students that do not have connectivity, and that's always an issue. And you're always concerned about that. So, we knew going into it. Somebody, one of my principals actually had said this. She said, we're just crisis schooling at this point. And I thought about that a lot. And she's right. We were literally, on a dime, not just in Texas, either across the whole nation, turning our education, pivoting, that word's gotten really popular, pivoting what we were doing so quickly. And so, there were so many questions to ask, like, how do we get the curriculum to the kids? And so we had Chromebooks for 6 through 12, so we were pretty good there. But even with that, we had kids that didn't have any Wi-Fi. So then we were, getting extra hotspots, trying to make sure we were providing Wi-Fi. And then again, like so many other rural areas, we just have places in our district where it doesn't matter. There is no connectivity. I mean, the hotspot didn't work. The cellular service isn't working. So we had some obstacles to overcome with trying to deliver that curriculum to our kids. And then, with the lower grades, we did it the old-fashioned way. We sent home library books, and we made game packets and provided curriculum at home. We spent a ton on postage mailing things home because we didn't want parents getting out if they didn't have to, or they weren't making a trip to school. So it was an experience that I never thought I would have. And I don't think I'm so proud. I'm so proud of everybody and the job that they did. And because I think it was pretty miraculous what went on in most districts, considering that we had zero time to prepare. So we were crisis schooling. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get to the exciting part. So at some point, here's what I want to know. Because I mean, when you were sitting down to have this meeting, I guess, was there an idea somebody brought forth in the district that said, hey, listen, the odds of, I'm assuming somebody said the odds of these kids are going to retain all this information. The odds of us learning something new at this point is a little ridiculous. So let's do something different. And you guys came up with this thing called the Quitman ISD Bulldog Life Skills Challenge. All right. Now, how did that idea come about?
So yeah, out of necessity. So we started monitoring our engagement, our online engagement from our students that were using grades 6 through 12, using our Chromebook in Google Classroom. So we were out 9 weeks, and that's probably pretty typical of schools around us, somewhere around 8 to 9 weeks. But we were out 9 weeks. And so the first, I would say, 5 weeks of school when we were out, we had really good engagement from our parents and our students. And so even at those lower elementary grades, when we were doing Zoom classrooms and meetings and with our kiddos and providing lessons, or using Facebook Live for some type of lesson, we had good engagement. And so somewhere around week 5, going into the first part of week 6, we just started seeing the steady decline. And we had a conversation in our administrative team meeting about the fact that we did not know how much longer our parents were going to be able to hang on, and our students were going to be able to hang on. They were exhausted. And then you also have to go back to the whole social, emotional well-being piece of it. We knew in our county that our child abuse cases were up. We knew that that people were really struggling. We had people that had lost their jobs, didn't know where their next, how they're going to pay rent. And so out of necessity, we were talking, and we're like, what can we do to help these parents at home? We want them to stay engaged with their kids. We don't want to just go, we're not having school anymore. That wasn't really an option. But we thought, what can they do? What are their resources in the homes? Because we found that was another huge issue, because you can send things home for the kids to do, but if the parents don't have a lot of the supplies and resources available to them, that becomes problematic. So I was laying in bed actually that night after that meeting, and I thought, you know what, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it to the finish line and feel good about it if we don't change and shift something. And so I started thinking about the life skills. I thought, what do parents have at home or guardians have at home where these kids live? What are things they have access to? And, and what is their challenges every day? What are they struggling with? And I'm like, well, I know when I'm stuck in the house, the things I even struggle with are when my kids were little. So I called them back in and I said, hey, what do y'all think about doing this life skills challenge? And I said, I'll take care of getting the curriculum done. Teachers won't have to do that at this point. They can spend their last 2 weeks of school simply following up on kids who haven't turned work in, making more phone calls, focus on, getting across the finish line with the curriculum that had already been taught. And by the last 2 weeks of school, you should have taught all your curriculum anyway. And so that's how we came up with it. I had a great instructional specialist. I called her and I was like, by the way, she's moved to Arkansas now, so I lost her. But her husband got transferred. But I called her and I said, hey, here's my idea, and this is what I'm envisioning. And she's like, oh yeah, I can make that happen. And so I sent her the ideas and she put it all together, and kind of the rest is history. We really did it just as a means to help parents and help kids. I wish I could tell you there was some huge design behind it all, but it was necessity. We needed to do something to help kids. And it turned out to be a great engaging lesson. And I cannot believe how many phone calls we got and people reaching out and borrowing it. And I'm like, there was nothing about it that was difficult. It was just, putting the learning in a manner where parents could utilize it and understand it, and giving some relief to them. They were struggling.
It was when I first saw it. Let me see if I can find. I actually have a copy of the post. Here's what it said. It said, for the next 2 weeks, Quitman ISD will be hosting a Bulldog Life Skills Challenge. Your child will not have any new work for school. We encourage you to work with your child on these important life skills and complete the survey sometime during the week. You will find week 1 posted online at the following link, and have fun! Exclamation points. So what people understand. So they know what we're talking about. So you guys broke these life skills up according to age, so they're all age appropriate. So if you had a pre-K, a K kid, or a first grade, they go online and they could pick 3 items from. It kind of looks like a grid, like a kind of a board that you gave them to choose from. And so pre-K, K, first grade, learn a parent's phone number, learn your address, make your bed. Dust low shelves in front of this is great stuff that I don't know. Like I remember doing all that as a kid. I remember, being forced to learn the phone number and all. And but it reminds me of when I was teaching high school, and one day, these kids are coming into the class. I always greet my kids, and it dawned on me one day that not one of these kids know how to shake hands. They just don't. They don't have that skill. They've never. And I have nothing against the more casual high five, shake, and slap it up and flip it around and do the all the fancy stuff. But I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. What if this is the one class where we actually learn how to shake hands? And so I built a curriculum. It takes a week to learn how to shake hands properly. Like, it's a whole thing I take them through. And so what was interesting is that it gained such national attention, and you guys had phone calls from New York City.
Yeah, all over. We heard from out of the country, even Australia. It was a little overwhelming. But I'm so grateful, because I think that sometimes the thing that we forget is that some of these basic things are so important. And an added benefit, and we did want them to have fun. We didn't want parents stressing, but I think the added benefit, when I started getting the pictures from parents and the pictures that parents were posting, and I don't have any readily available right now, but when I started looking at those, it almost brought tears to my eyes, because I saw kids outside pulling weeds in a garden, with a grandparent or a neighbor even, and I saw, people were baking cookies, and just spending time together, good quality time. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up and all of the very technical aspects of education that we forget how important that
Yeah.
is. And it's so important for parents to spend time, spend time with their kids and not feel like every single moment of that has to be structured to, what's the algebra problem, it's just important. And those one of my favorites was a high school boy, and his mom sent one in, and it wasn't on the list. It wasn't one of the ones we listed on there. But he was working. I'm thinking maybe with his dad, or granddad, or I don't know, neighbor or somebody. But he was learning to install electrical can lights. He was a junior or senior in high school, and he was learning
Yeah.
to do that. And I'm like, that's such a great skill that a lot of people just wouldn't have probably taken the time to work with their kids on had we not been doing the challenge. And I heard a couple of parents tell me, they said, when I tell my child to clean their room or help cook or whatever, they don't want to do it. And they're like, this time we were like, the teacher said you had to do it, so it's your homework. And so they said
Yeah.
the kids were so excited about that. So I think it helped that they felt like they had some backing from school to help with some of that stuff. So it was good time.
And
It was a
also
good time.
I think it came at such the perfect time, simply because when that came out, that is when so many parents and kids were at war. I'm talking about in my own house even. And here's my son stuck on a freshman algebra problem, and he doesn't, and
Yeah.
I don't listen. I could tell you how to do it, 30 years ago or 35.
Yeah.
Not today. I have no idea how that problem. I can't even believe that's called math. It doesn't look like there's no numbers in the equation is the problem. And so I can't help them. And I heard from so many educators. I heard from there's a lady I know. She has a PhD. She's a director of curriculum instruction in a school district, and she said, "Look, we gave up by 9:15 in the morning. We just couldn't do it. She's a world-class educator, and her own kids, she couldn't teach her own kids, two of them at the kitchen table." And so I think what I loved about it is it helps so many people realize, oh, like I almost forgot. This is kind of what it
Yeah.
should be to be a kid. And since we have this time together, we can reconnect as a family. And it's still school, it's still learning, and they still need it. I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
call them soft skills. I don't know why, because this is the other half of the thing you need to get a job.
Absolutely. Well, and it teaches them so many other things, like responsibility and teamwork, and those are those assimilate into every single thing we do, in our lives. And so, yeah, the timing was good. It was great for our community. It was fun. It was fun hearing from other people, other school districts, and seeing that it benefited people outside of our area. And so I was very happy about that. It brought a lot of joy to me to see that other people were able to benefit from it and take it and use it, and let it be a part of the end of their school year as well. And talking about those teachers being at home, I don't think initially, and I'm just going to be honest, because me, I'm honest. So I think yeah, just to say it. I don't think, even in my mind, I didn't realize the struggle that our teachers were going to have initially, because I don't have kids at home anymore myself. Mine are grown. I've grandkids, and they're awesome. But I didn't realize, and so as we went through that process, seeing how much our teachers were even struggling because they had their own kids at home to teach. So, you might have a teacher with, 2 or 3 kids, and she's trying to teach, but then she's also trying to teach her own kids the curriculum from other grade levels. And it was just, it was a difficult situation. And I think we made the best of it is what we did. So tried to find the silver lining in it.
I think that's the other thing that, this is for me and my work with schools. This is a theme that I find that is common among rural schools, where it's a very different in a suburb situation where
Sure.
in a suburb situation with, they might have 10 high schools and 17 middle schools and 40 elementary schools. When there's an issue we have to create committees, and there's a hierarchy of structure of leadership, and everything has to move around. But in a smaller school organization, oftentimes when there is a challenge, it's immediately met with creativity and resourcefulness, and it's handled, and really cool things happen as a result.
Yeah, we don't have as many levels of bureaucracy. I can't even say that word to go through, and that's my East Texas. Anyway, as many levels to go through, and so it is a little easier sometimes to get the decisions made we need to get made. But I think, in the middle of this pandemic, I really, really do applaud our teachers and administrators and school board members across the whole nation, because I'll tell you what, they did an amazing job getting things, doing the best they could with the time that they had and limited resources that we had. So it was pretty amazing to watch. It makes me really proud of our public school system. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for it. Obviously, I work in it. But I really, truly believe in what we do. And I know you do. I know you speak about it all the time, Hal, and you're such an advocate for education and for kids. But it's just, it is truly a work of art, that goes on out there. And I think that our educators really cannot be applauded enough for the job that they've done in serving our kids. So now we're going to have to we're really gearing up for this next year, right? So
Yeah.
every day's a new day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also interesting of a small district is we can, not that we can control, but we can influence culture on a more direct level. Since everyone knows each other, and there's a direct investment where, educators in that school, they know these kids and they know these families, and they know someday this kid is going to own a state farm agency right here in town, and this kid is going to be a police officer, and this kid, because as much as kids say they're leaving, lots of them leave, but most of them find their way back home at some point. And when it just seems like it's that ability to influence culture and attitude might be less challenging, since everybody's so close knit, than in a suburban or inner city school district where people are more disconnected. It's really hard to have an influence on the attitude of the educators.
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to both urban schools and then rural schools and differences. But I think you're right. I mean, we're in a very close knit community. I mean, you're gonna, you go to school, you go to church with the same people, you see the same people at the grocery store. And, when you're in an urban area, and I have lots of friends that teach in big districts, and and they don't. I mean, they're rarely going to run into people out and about because there's so many different places to go eat or go shop or whatever. So I think you're right on that account. Now, the downside is too, on the other side of it, because you do know everybody, has knows where you live, and they know your cell phone number.
Right.
And so, I have a long list of funny, great stories about people showing up at my front door. So,
Right.
for a whole nother show. So,
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when there's a question about, what time is 7th grade girls B team basketball game going to start, they don't think that, they just, let's just text Rhonda, the superintendent. She'll know. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's how it goes sometimes. So anyway, I see one of our teachers jumped on. Hi, Miss Hip.
Let me ask. There she is. So for you, as we kick this year off, for your teachers in your district, but teachers all over, because right now we have no idea. We're weeks away from starting, and we really don't have a solid plan on how we're going to go back. Is it going to be a hybrid, in person, all online, somewhat online? For you, what is your message to educators, those that you serve and and you love, about this upcoming year at this point?
Yeah. So here's what I think. I know, and I really can only speak for the state of Texas and what we're doing in our district, because I'm not as I do try to keep up with what's going on everywhere else, but my plate's pretty full dealing with what we're dealing with. So I think that, right now superintendents all across the state of Texas are working on their plans. We've already got some things we've released out to our parents, just some general guidelines that we're looking at. We know for sure we're going to be offering online, and we know for sure we're going to be offering face-to-face instruction. So parents have a choice in those too. We also know that, we can either choose to do asynchronous learning or synchronous learning. And so like our district specifically will be writing an asynchronous plan, and we're starting to work on that. But the problem is not so much that there aren't ideas and the plans aren't coming together. The problem is that every few days things change.
Yeah.
So, if you would have asked me back middle of June, so we got out of school in May, even towards the end of May, we were doing our Bulldog challenge, our life skills challenge. I was already starting to think we weren't seeing numbers here. We didn't have people testing positive. I don't think we got our first positive test in Quitman until I think we had one by then, and that was it. And so, we weren't seeing that surge of cases here. And so I was almost thinking, gosh, maybe we could even go back to school the last week, anyway, we didn't, because the governor said no, and so we didn't. But so you get into mid-June, and we had only had a few cases, and it was just really quiet. And so, if you would have asked me back in June, I would have said, our parents 100% they're going to want to send their kids back to school. We're just not seeing it here. And then we hit July and mid-July,
Yep.
and then now everything is different. And so everything that, you start off making a plan this way, and then you've got to shift again. And so we're going to shift again. So I think my best advice to parents is, no matter where we end up at all, we're going to do the best job we can do to keep kids safe and to keep our staff safe. So those things are already in motion, making sure we have plenty of protection for our. We ordered I don't know what they're called. They're like, you wear them around your neck, and then you just kind of pull them up. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Somebody out there. Yeah, somebody out there knows it. They can type it to us. So yeah, so we got some really cool ones that have a bulldog on them, and so they'll be really cool. That way the kids don't lose them if they need them or whatever. But really right now, being flexible and patient, as hard as it is, I just don't think we're going to really know until we get there. So I think there'll be plans in place. I have a Zoom meeting tomorrow night with parents. And so we're going to be meeting with our parents and kind of laying out, our different options and some of the things. Like right now, because of the governor's order, we know that you have to wear a mask if you're, over 10. So we know you've got to have social distancing. Those things are already, we already know those things right now. And so we'll just have to see how it is when it's time to come back. But we're gonna. I hope we're gonna be back, and I hope that we'll be able to get kids that really want to be back at school and that need to be back in school, get them there. So
what I love is it seems to me the further away from being actually directly involved with kids and teachers in schools, the less talk there is about safety. There's just talk about you're going back and less of a plan. But the closer you are to kids and closer you are to teachers, it's all about safety, taking care of kids and taking care of teachers. And how do we do this in such a way we can keep everybody safe? Because none of the learning doesn't matter, the instruction doesn't matter if we can't keep people healthy and safe, and feeling and knowing that they're healthy and safe.
Well, and the National Pediatric Academy came out with some information and looking at the emotional stress on kids, and they've really pushed to get kids back in school, because there is a balance in this. It's like, because it's great. We want to try to find the best balance for our kids that we can. And so, if the numbers are up too high, obviously we wouldn't be able to come back. But if they're not, and we can maintain a good, safe environment, then we know emotionally and mentally, for a lot of kids physically, school is so important, being here, getting those free lunches and free breakfast. And, that's sometimes for a lot of kids in rural areas. it's the meal. And I think about this sometimes. I'm gonna plug this because I was so happy with the Department of Agriculture working with with school districts through this pandemic, because one of the things I've argued in the past of being a rural school district, so when we do summer feeding, it was really designed around urban area makeups. And so when you do your summer feeding, the kids have to come to you, or you can set up a station here or there, like at the park or whatever. So when we
Yeah.
would do summer feeding, we wouldn't get kids there that needed to be there, but they wouldn't let you run your food out on a bus route. Well, when you're in rural Texas, my kids that live out in these rural areas are the ones who need the food, and they're the ones who somebody may not can bring them to town to get the food, or they don't have enough gas money to get here. And so I was so thankful that they ended up allowing districts to do that if they chose to do that. And I hope that's something we'll see continue, because I think when you're looking at trying to meet the needs of kids, and that for rural areas, that's extremely important to have that flexibility.
Huge. Hey, listen, man, I'm just so proud of you guys. The work that you guys do, and just how creative and resourceful, and also, like, what I love is, like, the big lesson within all of this is these kids are learning what it looks like to face incredible odds, come together, be creative, and come up with a plan that works. I love that part. Hey, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you.
Hey, and listen, good luck on your workshops you have coming up. I don't know if you've noticed, I have a lot of teachers that have signed up because our district paid
signed
for
up
it.
in droves. Oh, thank you so much. They were wonderful. We had a great time.
Yeah.
It's I really, man, thank you so much for all that.
Yeah, it was. I was glad to see that you were doing that. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work you do for our kids.
I appreciate you. Take care.
Okay, bye,
All right.
guys.
Thank you so much, Rhonda Turner. Hey, listen, everybody, before we shut it down, let me tell you, we have a YouTube live show coming up on Thursday. We're kicking off the first one, YouTube live, with the Help a Teacher folks. And our first guest is going to be Real Rap Reynolds, CJ Reynolds. And I know that he has so many fans on the Help a Teacher page, and it's going to be a great night. So I believe it's 7 p.m. Central, Thursday. And I hope you can join us. It's the maiden voyage. It's the first one, and I hope to see you guys there. All right, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you.